Also, if you have any questions, um, let us know so that I can go through those whilst Dave is live in here. Um, there you are.
Oh,
Hey Dave, how are you doing?
good, yeah. Do
Awesome.
I look all right? I look a bit, it looks a bit dark, no?
You're okay on my end.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
I'll trust you.
So
I like what's going on with you as well. Wow, that's
I've got some mystical stuff going on mine.
yeah.
Hi
I didn't know
Tori.
I would have dressed up.
You look great. You look
Yeah.
great. So everyone who's new to this is my series Get Dreaming With, where I ask different dreamers around the globe about their unique skills, talents, specializations in terms of dream work, any books, courses, all that good stuff. And today I'm interviewing Dave Green, who kind of specializes in, I guess, lucid dreaming or creating art in the lucid dream or out of body experience space. He is also a stand-up comedian and an explorer of consciousness. I will say that I got lost in a trail of watching your YouTube stand-up comedy this morning, Dave. So I'm
Oh,
feeling
really?
extra great.
Yeah, yeah.
Awesome. So let's dive right in. And Dave, I guess for people who might be tuning in that don't know as much about lucid dreaming, consciousness exploration, out of body experiences, or any of that stuff, what really started your journey with this work? How did it all begin for you?
Okay, so I think my story is quite similar to a lot of people. I had, as a young child, I had nightmares. So I started to control my dreams as a way to deal with the nightmares. And I didn't know what it was called. And at some point when I was a teenager, I heard this phrase lucid dreaming, and I was like, yeah, that's what I've been doing, right? And then got Stephen LeBurge's book, Exploring the World of Lucid Dreaming, which I think has introduced a lot of people to it.
Yeah.
And yeah, and just kind of got into it around about the age of sort of 17, 18. I was really heavily into it and like learned all about it and was having them, very frequently. And even back then, actually, I was doing this same technique of how I create my artwork. So I make a drawing in the lucid dream, and then I wake myself up, and then I recreate in real life what I've just done in the dream. So I did that. I was doing that a little bit all the way back then, and then I
Wow.
just kind of totally forgot about it for the last however long, 15 years. I'm 35 now, so longer than that. And well, I wouldn't say totally forgot about it, but it was ticking away in the background.
Mm.
I've had sort of lucid dreams that whole time as part of my regular dreaming life. But as you know yourself, if you're not, most of it's about intention. So if
Mm.
you're not kind of tuning in and paying attention and to your dream life, then it's a very different thing.
Yeah.
But and then over, and what else can I say? So I went to art school. Around that time, I would have been sort of studying art at college, and then I
Yeah.
did art at university, and I very quickly left that behind and started doing stand-up comedy. Because at the time, I thought the whole art thing was, I did very much like it, but I thought it was like a bit pretentious, and I was like, stand-up comedy is this such an immediate way to be creative, right? You come up with an idea in the morning, go out that night, and it just is brilliant. Anyway, so I've been doing that for the last 10 years. And over lockdown, obviously all the venues shut, so I couldn't do any stand up. And
Uh,
I've kind of rediscovered this thing I was doing as a teenager.
that's so
And it's been really
awesome.
fun actually. So I've kind of rediscovered my artistic side, and I've only been doing it a couple of months, but it's got a bit of sort of interest online. And
That's
for me,
so
it's a very strange experience because I kind of, left that whole sort of art thing behind
yeah.
to do stand-up comedy, which obviously is a form of art, but it's a very different
Yeah.
thing, right? So now I'm
Yeah.
in this weird place where I'm calling myself a comedian, an artist, and an explorer of consciousness,
It's a great
which is
title to have.
yeah, it's a funny mix because I think I don't know, as I said, yeah, I think comedy calling yourself a comedian and an artist is a strange mix,
Yeah.
especially with this type of art, because it's not that it's deadly serious, but it requires people to take me seriously in the sense that
Mhm.
hopefully the drawings are interesting themselves, but I think the main thing that makes them interesting is my testimony to how they're being made.
Yeah, I think they're really, really interesting, which is
Oh,
why
thank
I
you.
loved playing around with them to kind of advertise this. But that's so cool that actually it was the lockdown that kind of brought you back to this work. Would you say
Yes.
there's anything different about going into it now in comparison to when you first started with this, like maybe 15, 20 years ago?
Well, I've gone into it much deeper. Back then, it's hard to remember because it was so long ago. I did an exhibition like in the local, like that's a very grand word for it. It was in the local youth, it was in the youth club where we used to go skateboarding, and I
Right.
stuck some things on the wall.
Cool.
And which weirdly, Charlie Morley, fellow Lucid Dream, he grew up in the same area as me, coincidentally.
Oh, no way.
And I found out recently he knows the people grew up with, and we were probably around that hanging about at that time
That's
where
cool.
I had that exhibition. Weirdly, but anyway,
Yeah.
so yeah, but back then I only did. It's hard to say, maybe 10 or 15 drawings, but now I've got like I don't know 50 or 60 or something. So I've got
That's so
quite a lot.
cool.
Yeah.
What really influenced you to kind of start combining art with dreamwear? Because obviously getting lucid, like most people would fly around or have sex or do that kind of stuff, but like getting into art or actually starting to create artwork in the dream space seems
Mm.
like quite an advanced thing to do, perhaps.
Yeah, I think. Well, I did all that other stuff too. Don't get me wrong, but I think I guess I was heavily into art at that time. Thought of
Mhm.
myself as an artist, and it just seemed like, and I loved all like the surrealists and Salvador Dali and Magritte and all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. You know, I was a teenager, so it was like, I don't know, that stuff is still great. But I think, but what I found interesting was, I think when you try and depict a dream in art, I always found it a bit disappointing because it's such a huge. You're never going to be able to translate what that experience is like.
Yeah.
And I don't think what I'm doing here does that either, but I like the idea of actually, rather than drawing something you saw in the dream, actually drawing something in the dream, then the pictures you get it's never exactly the same because I can never get it exactly the same, but
Right.
I like the idea of getting like a duplicate version of something that's literally been created in the dream. It's like an
Yeah.
artifact or a relic from another world.
It is so
It's
cool because
yeah,
yeah,
it's a
there's
fun
so
idea.
many times that I've had a lucid dream and been like, I wish I could take a picture of this right now or something like
Yeah.
that. So it is nice to see like kind of like you said, like relics coming back into the waking state. So for people who are tuned in right now that have
Mm.
maybe no idea how this works at all or how you even begin with this kind of thing, do you want to explain a bit more of like your process of how you set up to start doing art in the dream space and how that works?
So are you talking about what techniques to have lucid dreams or
Not for having them, but like what you do
yeah.
in particular, because I know you kind of have like you set your intentions and you like set up your notebook and everything. So maybe just
Yeah,
running through
okay.
that.
I see. All right. So the type of so I almost all my lucid dreams are wake induced lucid dreams. So they all take the form of an out of body experience. I see it within the frame of lucid dreaming, but you could describe it as an out of body experience. But so yeah, so and that type of dream is quite interesting because it takes place in my flat. All
Yeah.
of them. So all during lockdown, I've had this out of body experience dream, and my dream body comes up like that. My bedroom's over there, so I walk through the dream version of my house, and then I come and sit down at this very desk I'm sitting at now. And then in the dream version of this room, I do the drawing, and then wake up, and then I come back to this same desk and go back. So it's actually not only are the drawings the same, they're actually taking place in the real life version, of the dream desk. Does this all make sense? It is very confusing, I know.
Yeah, let us know, type in the comments if you have any questions about how this works in particular. But that's so cool. It's kind of almost like you're having a false awakening, like when you come back into the waking state, and because you're doing it again, right? But it's not, it's you're actually conscious. How do you decide like where to start with your drawings? Like, do you have an idea about what you want to do? Because I know you said that you kind of start drawing something and then the dream starts drawing stuff too.
Yes, so that's like my whole process of doing this, I've been exploring that, because for people that are maybe not so familiar with lucid dreaming and how it works, everything in the dream world is very much guided by your thoughts, and expectation, I think, is the key word. If you expect something to happen, then it does. And so that's the dynamics of the dream world. And when I'm doing these drawings, those dynamics are playing themselves out on the page.
Yeah.
So because I'm doing it in a dream, it's very different to if you're drawing in real life. Because I can decide, oh, I'm going to draw a circle. But if I think of a car, then a car will appear next to it, right? Or something like that. Or sometimes I'll just put my hand across the page like that and something very complex appears.
Cool.
But it's all about how much I kind of let the dream in and how much I do myself, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, I've got some examples here. I've actually got my drawings here.
I'd love to see some of those. Yeah, maybe you can like share one of your recent dreams and show the picture, and kind of that will give everyone a better idea of exactly what we're talking about.
Okay, so if I say, well, I'll start off with one of the earlier ones to sort of describe how they behave a little bit more.
Yeah.
So this one's quite a funny one.
It's so cute. It's like a kind of cassette.
Yeah, so that's one of the earlier ones, and it's changed quite a lot over time. And the reason that looks like that is in the early ones, I was very obsessed with this idea of trying to get an exact replica of something that was made in the dream. So I was very conscious of trying to keep it very simple.
Okay.
Right? So that when I drew it in the dream, it would have been, I can't remember exactly, but it might work like this. I might draw that mouth and then those two eyes would probably appear, right?
Cool.
Because it's not like normal waking life, because the drawing almost guesses what I'm thinking before I've already done it.
Yeah.
And then I woke up and did that in real life. And then and then at some point I did a few like that are quite simple. Like there's another one that's quite simple, reasonably simple. Something like this was one of the early ones done with that technique.
Oh, wow. It kind of looks like Baymax or something like that.
Yeah, it's a strange one, that. And then, so there are a few of the simpler designs. And then at some point I started going in the dream. And sometimes at one point I went in the dream and my pen didn't work, right? And then I noticed, usually there'd be a blank bit of paper in the dream, again, just because I expect there to be a blank bit of paper there, and that's the only reason why it's there. But sometimes I'd go in the dream and the paper would already have stuff on it. And to begin with, I was ignoring that, and I was going, no, I need to do my drawing, which is a bit ridiculous. And at some point I thought, no, what if I look at what images are already on the paper, right? And when I did that, the imagery was way more complicated, and it was stuff like this.
Whoa.
It's totally different. But so I should say
I was going to say, what do you make of that? Like, do you have an interpretation of what that is or where it comes from?
So this one was one of the more interesting ones, actually. I really feel there was some strong emotions with this one, which doesn't really happen with lots of the others. But this was like, I got the feeling, like the title for this one, I think I've called it The Divine Being. So I really got the feeling with this one, it was like, you might not think it looking at it, but it felt like it was some sort of conscious entity, and sort of like the sort of thing that you come across in dreams, but this was in a drawing in the dream. It was so that was a very powerful emotion, and I tried to revisit that. I asked to see that again, right? And it appeared in different forms. So that's another one.
Okay.
So
another
So I went,
dream that you went back into to try and see it again.
yeah, and I asked to see the same thing. And
Oh,
then this one, and then I did that a third time to see
wow.
these and a bit like that. And I find this one entertaining because my main way of getting an audience for this is putting it on Instagram,
Mm.
which we're doing now. So obviously you can see this has been inspired by Instagram because it's got like the grid. So it's like my subconscious mind knows it's going to go on Instagram. And that's happened with a lot of them. This one is
Oh,
clearly
cool.
because my subconscious knows it's going on Instagram. So that's like my dreams version of my own dream drawings on Instagram.
You've
So it's
taken
quite,
Instagram marketing to a whole new level, Dave.
yeah, exactly. It's got pretty ridiculous.
It's
But
amazing.
in terms of the way the drawing behaves, I'll just talk about these ones really quickly.
Mm.
Because once I started to realize that how, how I could do a simple line drawing, it would be more me,
Yeah.
or I could stand back a bit and I could let the dream provide its own imagery. I started to intentionally experiment with that dynamic.
Yeah.
So this one, I did the smallest possible sort of interaction from me. So all I did was just draw a tiny dot in the dream, and I just sat back and watched what happened. And then this arrow shot out, and then these images appeared around it.
Oh. And do you feel like there was some connection to that, like the images that pop up? Because you got like the bear there and the arrow, and then kind of the building blocks. Like, does that mean anything to you?
Most of them, I was saying that one with the divine being, that was sort of like a quite strong emotion attached to that one. That's probably more rare. Most of them are just very mysterious. I say to people, they're as mysterious to me as they are to anyone else looking at it,
Yeah.
really.
That's really
Someone's asked a
interesting.
question here. They've said, do you remember all that detail from the dream while awake, the divine drawing, or you fill out? So, oh yeah, that I was going to say that. Yes, with something like that. So the simple ones, I'd say it's never ever totally accurate because when you're drawing in the dream, nothing is stable, right? So
Yeah.
when I'm looking at these in the dream, they're only ever static for about 2 seconds maybe.
Yeah.
And then they're changing. And when I move my eyes, they'll change.
Well,
So in answer to your question, something like this, there's a lot of guesswork involved in that.
yeah.
Because something that, I mean, even in waking life, if I showed you that and asked you to draw it, it would be very hard. So imagine if it's
Impossible.
in a dream. So the
Yeah.
more complicated ones, there is a lot of interpretation involved. So it's kind of I like the simple ones in the way that they're more accurate, but then the complex ones they also look nice. So there's something else going on, but
Yeah,
it's hard to
definitely.
say what one's better. But
Yeah.
yes, there is
And
a lot of guesswork involved. Yeah.
it seems like you are kind of directly almost conversing with your subconscious or the unconscious, and the fact that you kind of have some intention going in of what to draw, but then the fact that stuff pops up or is drawn by the dream, that you're also kind of like, I don't know what that means initially, is really
Mm-hmm.
interesting. I know that you also talked about like different interactions you'll have in there, like you sent a tweet from a dream, right? So it's not just artwork that you're kind of playing with, there's some other
Yeah.
things. Did you want to talk about that?
Oh yeah. Weirdly, I think that video I did was sort of my first rediscovery of lucid dreaming over lockdown. So that one was very strange, actually. I'd almost forgotten about that. So what I did is I went into a lucid dream. I found a dream character and I asked him what I should tweet. Is that right? You might remember it better than me if you've just watched it. I
I
think,
didn't just watch it, I saw it quite a while ago. Yeah.
okay, I think I asked a dream character what I should tweet and then I woke up in real life and tweeted that. But
Okay.
since doing that, it's funny because in that video I made a joke about having a brain-computer interface where you could tweet directly from the dream. And I thought I was joking. I don't know if you know Dashiell, who's
Mm.
part of the Lucid Hive. And I've since met a dream researcher and I guess, yeah, she makes her own sort of dream gadgets.
Yeah.
And she is literally working on that exact thing.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
the people who don't know, during REM, during a lucid dream, your eyes are the only part of your body that isn't disabled. Because your whole body is disabled to stop you acting out a dream. So you can still move your eyes, right?
Yeah.
So that means in theory, you can send, using Morse code and blinks, you can communicate from the dream world. So it is actually possible to send a tweet from a dream. And that's, yeah.
Yeah, I saw that in some research as well at the IASD, that people were creating these like virtual keyboards that they would pop up in the dream and then kind of look at the key to key with their eyes so that they could create a message in between the dream world and waking reality. So that stuff's just mind-blowing.
I haven't seen that.
Yeah.
Wow. And did it work?
I think it's not super accurate right now, but again, it's like one of those things that I think the more we work on it, the more we can work out how to get it more accurate and that kind of thing.
These things are amazing, aren't they? There's ideas that just seem so sci-fi, but then you look at it and like, oh, they've done that.
Yeah.
It's absolutely crazy.
So have you explored with, like, obviously you use your notebook and I guess like a pen or a pencil to draw, but have you explored other material, like writing a question or you know, using paint instead, or like that kind of stuff at all?
Yeah, a few people have asked that, and they're like, Dave, why are they in black and white? But I think I would like to do that in the future. My main reason for just using pen and just using black is that thing of I just want to keep it as simple as possible so I can know I can recreate it. Because once you start doing paint, I think it'll just get a bit more complicated.
Definitely.
In terms of words, I haven't really specifically asked for them, but I did have this come up once. Again, when I was looking for a paper in the dream to draw on, there was already stuff on the paper. And I looked at one of them and it said this. Grandia. Is it backwards?
Yeah.
I think all of these might be backwards, you know.
Oh, okay.
So that says Grandia Espionage, which means, well, I think it's like Latin, so it means grand espionage. Wow. Which I think is quite a good metaphor. It's kind of symbolic for dreaming, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, consciously going in your dream, trying to get information. So that was quite strange. That came up. What could that mean? I don't know. But I do actually quite like to. I mean, in theory, it definitely would be possible to try and figure out what significance these images have, and some of them do. I also quite like the idea of just saying it's mysterious. Yeah. Because what I didn't mention is I've been doing, the main thing I've been doing actually is doing them specifically for people. So people commission me to do a drawing, and then sometimes, so if I was doing one for you, I'd come here, I'd have the out-of-body experience, I'd walk through the dream version of my house, and then I'd get a book and I'd say, show me a picture for Lana, and then I'd open it up and see what was inside. Wow. So my idea of how that works is very simple. It would just be whatever subconscious associations I have with you, that would pop up in the imagery, right? There's nothing more mysterious than that. And what I've also been doing is meeting people in the dream. Oh, I'll tell you what I did recently. I'll tell you this. Someone commissioned me to do a dream tattoo, right? My friend Tom. So I found him in the dream, and I looked at his arms to see what tattoos he had. And then he's actually crazy enough that he's going to get these tattoos in real life. So that's, so one of them was like this. Whoa. There's another one. We did that. So we did this project over a series of nights. He commissioned me to have 4 dreams, and I'd go in the dream and then I'd show him the images, and then we'd talk about that. And then I'd go back and, guide the dream. Like, for example, the first image I got was this, which was quite funny. And then he asked me to go back in the dream and ask the dream who these people were. Yeah. Or these beings, these, whatever you want to call them. And then when I went back, it showed me this, which is quite interesting. So it's like my dream didn't want me to know, right? They've been like blacked out. Yeah. And then he commissioned me for 4 dreams. After 3, he seemed to be happy with what came out. Okay. So I said, you've got 1 more dream, Tom. I feel a bit like a genie. So you got 1 more dream. And So I found his girlfriend in the dream and did the same thing. I looked at her to see what tattoo she had, and she had this one, which was quite cool.
Whoa, that's super cool.
So that one actually looks like a tattoo, right?
It does.
Albeit a strange dream world version. So that
Epic.
was quite a fun project. So I've been
Yeah.
doing that. Those dreams are actually more fun. In a way, it's funny how like although the drawing bit is, you know, hopefully interesting, my actual dream life for most of this has been incredibly boring. Because I've literally just been walking. Bear in
Back
mind, you
and
can do
forth.
absolutely anything in a lucid dream. I just walk like 5 meters over to here, do a drawing, and then wake up.
Right. And you're in
And
lockdown in the waking state as well, so you're just
yeah,
doing
exactly.
that 24/7.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't even see. This is what I thought would be funny to talk to you about as well, because I know you're quite into the sort of using the dreams for self improvement,
Yeah.
and I think I'm living proof that you can do anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
As in like no, as in like the dream. I think the point I'm trying to make is I don't think what I'm doing with this is entirely healthy, to be honest, because it's I'm a bit of I'm a bit of a workaholic, and I've almost like turned my dreams into a job. It's kind of weird, but
Yeah.
I would say on my nights off, I do meditate to try meditate in the dream to
Good.
try and balance that out. So that's my
Yeah.
favorite thing to do when I'm not doing this.
It's funny that you say that because, yeah, I work with a lot of entrepreneurs and how they can improve their businesses with lucid
Yeah,
dream work. But actually, a lot of what's come up is that it's a great time for any entrepreneur or workaholic to actually just catch a break and go do the stuff that they
yes, yes.
wouldn't be doing. But
Yeah, yeah,
yeah, it's interesting that you're just using it as extra work time,
yeah,
essentially.
yeah.
Oh, wow. What would you say are some of the kind of rituals that you use to get into the lucid dream, or like you said, you kind of like meet with some of your friends or characters, or you ask the
Mm.
dream questions. So are there like particular techniques that you're a fan of or things that really work well for you?
So in terms of techniques, the main thing I do is I think the main thing is just having it in your mind. And as I was touching on there, I'm so obsessed with it. I'm thinking about this all the time.
Yeah.
So that's not really a technique, but just being obsessed with it and just thinking about it. Inevitably, in the night, the one I do is not really a technique, but I think the one I'm doing is I think it's called this is getting super specific now, but a dream exit induced lucid dream or something like that.
Okay.
I'll just describe it. All it is, usually around 4 a.m. or 5 a.m., I kind of surface a little bit after a regular dream, very slightly, and then I just think, oh, I'm going to get a lucid dream when I go back in.
Okay.
And then I have the out of body experience. And
It's
it's like
kind
that
of
pretty much every time it's like that.
kind of like
And
a
then
wake back to bed sort of technique.
yeah, I don't know, but I don't get up though. It's literally like I kind
Yeah.
of wake up for like it's 2 seconds or something.
Gotcha.
But apart from that, I do right before I go to bed, I'll just kind of meditate for 10 minutes. And then when I'm doing a drawing for someone, I'll just put a blank bit of paper here and a pen
So
to kind of
interesting.
set the intention. And then I come back here. But obviously it's not the same paper, guys. That's just a symbolic thing. Because yeah, I mean, lots of people didn't quite. I tried to do a video really explaining what I'm doing, but I think maybe if you're not familiar with lucid dreaming, it is. I mean, I get it, right? It's incredibly complicated to get your head around.
Yeah.
Like, lots of people thought I was sleepwalking. They're like, and I'm like, no, it's just I'm walking around the mental model of my
Right.
house
Right.
in a dream. But yeah,
Cool. So you use meditation, and I know Sean just asked a question of like, how does the dream meditation differ experientially from your meditation experience in waking life?
it's very different. So, well, I say that it's very different, but the same dynamics are at play. When I started doing it recently, and in the dream, I made the mistake of meditating and closing my eyes,
Mm.
which is how I do it in waking life. But when you do that, you cut out all the input, right? You cut out all the dream imagery. So I was just waking up. I couldn't figure out what I was doing wrong, and then I can't remember what made me figure it out. But at some point, I decided to meditate in the dream with my eyes open,
Mm.
and I was like, okay, this is what it's all about. Because what happens is, because when you're meditating in a dream, same as real life, you're kind of, yeah, just having a detached attitude to what's going on in your mind. But obviously, in a
Right.
dream, what's going on in your mind is the environment you're in, right?
Yeah.
So, one, for example, I was in a field and I started meditating, and there's like a tractor and some people or something, and then started meditating, and then they just sort of got distant, metaphorically and literally, and I just kind of started floating away. It was
Wow.
very different. It wasn't like flying. It was totally different from a flying dream. It was just literally I felt the dream fading away, and then I kind of went backwards through a tree, and all these snakes and stuff came by. So I
Wow.
guess that was sort of like shadow material,
Yeah.
which you do get when you're meditating in the day. Well, I've got when I was meditating in the day, and
Yeah.
then same as when you're meditating in the day. On the other side of that dark shadow stuff, there's a very peaceful sort of space. And then
Mm.
and then it was like, yeah, I don't know.
So
I don't know
cool.
how interesting it is to talk about. I feel like even in dreaming circles, there's a taboo about doing dream anecdotes, which are too long. But
Yeah.
maybe not. Maybe that's just me. But yeah, it's give it a go.
Yeah.
Try meditating in your dream. It really is. I think most people have been lucid dreaming for a while. I mean, I wouldn't like to speak on behalf of everyone, but I think at some point most people get to the once you've done the flying, the having sex, the doing whatever you want to do, living out your fantasies. At some point, you realize that yeah, meditating's the way to go.
There's a lot of cool
Yeah,
stuff, yeah,
so,
to explore it. Yeah,
yeah,
personally, I'd love to see and anyone else tuned in as well to like try this out, like the drawing or the meditation and tag me or tag Dave and kind of see what other people do with it as well. Because I know for me personally, when I try something and then I tell someone else about it, like they have the same experience, but it's kind of got their own twist to it as well. So yeah, it would be really cool to see,
mm-hmm.
all these tattoos or I don't know, whatever else. Obviously, you're also a stand-up comedian. So do you feel
Yes.
like you play with that in lucid dreams as well, or how does that kind of fit into your life?
Uh, it's a strange one because, as I told you, yeah. So when lockdown hit, stand up kind of stopped,
Yeah.
and I've seen this as I've kind of, in a way, sort of enjoyed sort of not thinking about myself as a comedian for a little bit, and
Mm,
this stuff has kind of filled that gap because I've been hitting it pretty hard for a long time, and this stuff kind of filled that gap. But now, and for a bit, I was having a bit of an identity crisis, thinking, how do I mix stand-up comedy with lucid dream art? Because I think obviously a part of the sort of comedian sort of enjoyed sort of not thinking about myself as a comedian for a little bit, and
mm,
this stuff has kind of filled that gap because I've been hitting it pretty hard for a long time, and this stuff kind of filled that gap. But now, and for a bit, I was having a bit of an identity crisis, thinking, how do I mix stand-up comedy with lucid dream art? Because I think obviously a part of the sort of comedians, obviously everyone's different the way you do it, but I think a part of the sort of comedic mindset is kind of being a bit cynical and kind of like
yeah.
calling out bullshit and stuff. And it's a kind of attitude that is almost the opposite to sort of lucid dream. Do you know what I mean? How it's like it's like I listen to some of the stuff I'm saying now, and like the comedian in me is like, "Shut up, Dave. What are you talking about?" But like, who do you think you are? Like some sort of visionary or something. But so yeah, so I'm trying to figure out how those two things go together.
Mm.
And
I'm just thinking it would be interesting to like, I don't know, all comedians work differently, but some I've heard Dave Chappelle say that sometimes he'll just think of something really funny, like a punchline, but it will take him quite a few months to come up with like how to get to that punchline. So I'd be
yes,
interested if you could do something like that in the notepad, like write down a punchline and see what the dream came up with as like the
yeah,
precursor to it, or I
yeah,
don't know.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, a few people have suggested that, kind of coming up with comedy, like, yeah, jokes in the dream. I think I mean, you don't know until you try it.
Yeah.
But my inkling is, if you're going to use the dream for something creative, I think it works quite well with drawings because they're so abstract and symbolic, and the links are kind of weird and like, what's going on there, in a
Yeah.
way that jokes can't really work like that. I think a joke has got to be very sort of logical, and I mean, probably that's my inkling.
Yeah. Yeah.
A dream might give you a joke, but it would be totally unintelligible, and it might be funny, like weird, but I don't think it'd be funny.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's a good point because I've had a lot of dreams where like I find something really funny in the dream or even a joke maybe, but then actually upon awakening and saying it out loud, I'm like, that's not really that funny at all. But
Yeah.
yeah,
You get like the feeling, you connect with the feeling of humor, but there's
yeah,
no humor.
yeah. Cool. Well, thank you so
Lots of people
much for
say that
your.
about my act. Anyway, sorry, carry on.
Oh, what were you saying?
I just said lots of people say that about my act. You get a feeling of humor, but there's no jokes.
I had a great time this morning watching through them actually. That was the other thing I wanted to touch on too, is I know in your YouTube setup, like you have that what's it called? Like the street
Oh
thing.
yeah, Dave Green Street View show.
Yeah.
That's an interview show I used to do with yeah, where I interviewed comedians. It was a virtual tour of comedians' lives using Google Street View.
Has that come into your dream work at all? Because I feel like, the environment plays such an important part in it. I was just curious about
Yeah,
that.
that's an old project which I haven't really done in a while. But weirdly, that I guess that does kind of play into this, doesn't it? Kind of virtual
Yeah.
spaces, virtual worlds. It's a
Yeah.
similar thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, who knows? Maybe I'll start doing that again, but with lucid dreamers instead of
That would be
comedians.
so funny. Yeah, cool. So thank you for your time today. I don't want to keep you too long, but for people who are really interested in you following your work, whether it's comedy, lucid dream art, all that stuff, where can they find you? How do they connect with you? If they want to commission, what's the process of that?
Yeah, so the main place for lucid dream stuff is Instagram, really. Yeah, so I mean, I assume you can get it through this. Dave Green 5000 is my very snappy name. There's a lot of Dave Greens about. So yeah, and if you're interested in a commission, you just direct message me through there, and I kind of tailor it to the person. So we just, we'd talk on the phone or messenger. I'm old school, so I like the phone. But yeah, and we talk about how that might work, and then I'll tell you if that's possible, and then we'll give it a go. That's how we do
Love
it.
it. Thanks so much. I always ask, is there anyone else, any other dreamers that you're connected to, that you would love to kind of pick their brains or have them on here as well?
Do you know Carissa? You must know Carissa from the Hive. You
Yeah.
should get her to do it. Yeah, she's like talking about the meditation stuff. She's knows all about the sort of Buddhist perspective. So yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, I'd love to have Carissa on. Sweet. Thank you so much, Dave. Is there anything you'd like to say that we haven't touched on or finish up with?
I don't think so. No, I think that's pretty much it. I just see
Awesome.
my friend Ruth's joined, but we're about to
Yeah.
go.
Well, for
All
everyone
right.
who's joined late, this will be on our IGTV, so you can go back to the beginning, catch up on all the good stuff on replay as well. Awesome. Thank you for joining
That's
me,
it.
Dave.
All right.
And
Thank
yeah,
you. It
we
was
look
really fun.
forward to seeing everyone tag you in their attempts at lucid dream drawing.
Great. Yeah. Love to see it.
Great.
Lovely.
See
All
ya.
right. See you soon.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye.